I don't know who you monsters are out there that dog ear your books, but you're all monsters. Hey friends and book lovers, welcome. Today I am doing a tag video, and I've been really excited to do tag videos lately. They're just so much fun and I love being tagged. So I got tagged to do this by Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and I really enjoy his channel. I was actually watching his self-published recs this morning. He has a video of like 6 recommendations that he has that are all self-published that he's read and that he really enjoys. So I was going through that list, and there's a couple of those that are on my TBR, so I was really excited to see that he had them on his recommendations list. So you guys should definitely check out his channel. He reads a ton of adult fantasy. I think he's also reading some horror, and he's a wealth of knowledge, and he's actually really fun and enthusiastic when he talks about reading. So it's always great energy when I watch his videos. So thanks Andrew for tagging me. I'm excited to jump into this one. So there are 20 questions in this tag, and it's kind of like a get to know me tag. So I figure I'll be as honest as I can be as possible, try to answer these on the fly. I haven't prepared any answers, so I just figured I'd read through them and give you the first answer that pops in my head, which could be good, but it could be really bad too. So the first question is, how many books are too many books in a series? I probably would say, I think the Wheel of Time series is like 14 or 15 books. I think that's a lot. I really prefer trilogies, maybe even quartets, but I find like 3 or 4 books in a series is the sweet spot. Really long series are hard for me to love because I'll get bored at some point. Like at some point, how can you freshen the story up? Now, I'm sure that there's going to be a series that I stumble upon that I wish there was more books in that series, or that I'm just so happy that there's 14 or 15 books in that series, but 3 or 4 is really the sweet spot for me. The second question is, how do you feel about cliffhangers? I don't mind cliffhangers if there's going to be a sequel, but don't give me a cliffhanger and then don't give me a sequel, or don't give me a cliffhanger and then wait 3 years to publish the next book. Like, don't do that. It's rude. Hardcover or paperback? Now, this is kind of hard because I like hardcovers because they're pretty, they're really aesthetically pleasing. I feel like they last longer, but I love reading a floppy paperback, like actively using a book. I'll prefer a floppy paperback as a book collector as well. I love hardbacks because they're usually more aesthetically pleasing and they last longer. Now, there's an exception because I love these Robin Hobb paperback versions, and so I wouldn't trade those for a hardcover version, but usually it's hardback. 4 is favorite book. This is hard because I like so many different ones. I think favorite book of all time is probably Fahrenheit 451. I love dystopian stories. I haven't read that in a long time though, so I want to reread it and make sure that it's still a favorite. Favorite like adult fantasy series is definitely the Broken Earth trilogy. I love that trilogy. I love that it just was really mysterious going into it and I didn't know what was going on, and the way it unfolded and the way things happened made so much sense. So I know people have a hard time with reading the first book at first because you really just don't know what's going on, but I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed the journey we took and just discovering things along the way. Number 5 is least favorite book. My least favorite book is probably my physics book from college, or like the first part of my organic chemistry book, because for whatever reason the first half of organic chemistry was a lot harder than the second half of organic chemistry. So those 2 books are definitely my least favorites. I'm gonna leave it at that. Number 6, love triangles, yes or no? Love triangles maybe briefly, but I don't really prefer them. I think that it's kind of like a bad plot device in a book. I just think it's very YA, which I do enjoy YA, but I wouldn't want to see that in like an adult fantasy romance because it would just irritate me, though I think that there's a book coming out soon that might have a love triangle that I'm going to be excited to read. And I don't know how I feel about that yet, but usually it's a no. Number 7, the most recent book you couldn't finish. So I don't usually DNF books. I don't even know if I DNF'd a book. There is one that I wish I had DNF'd, and that's Songs of Insurrection by J.C. King. Now I got an ARC of this and I was so excited because the cover and the premise sounded so good, and it's like D&D influence, which I don't play D&D, but I respect the game because it's super like intricate and like specialized and really difficult, but this book didn't live up to it. It was just there was so many misogynistic and like almost pedo type of tones in it that I really didn't enjoy, and our main female character was really frustrating and just kind of played into those themes that were presented. So unfortunately, I wish I had not finished that book. Number 8 is a book you're currently reading, and this one I'm right now in this moment reading Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, finally getting into the second one of the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy, and I'm excited. I'm only like at chapter 5, so I'm only like 60 pages in, and it's a chunker. It is like 800 pages solidly. I don't know how he writes stories this long, but I am buddy reading this with the other Andrew over at Get Right On In, and he's much further along, and he's telling me that he's loving it, so I can't wait to get to the parts that he's currently at. Number 9 is the last book you recommended to someone. I feel like the last books I recommended to someone are to my friend Angela, and I recommended to her an author. I recommended Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I think I told her also about Fire on High, which is also by the same author, and I told her to read the audiobooks because the narrator is so powerful. And she actually read Poet X and she loved it, so it was like a solid win. I love when recs work out. I always get sad when they don't, but I love when they do, so that's the last book. The oldest book you've read by publication date, and it's probably the one I'm reading right now, Count of Monte Cristo. I think it was published in the 1800s, and it was like a serialized publication from what Stephanie over at Miss Richard Reads is telling us, which is really cool because it was published over like a year or something, and it's a huge book, but I think that's the oldest one I've read / am currently reading. The newest book you've read, I'm pretty sure I've read new releases from this year. I think the newest book I read was Dragonbird and the Fern, and I got an ARC for that, but it came out the beginning of August. I did a review on it. It's like a YA, a fantasy romance book, and it was alright. It was a solid like 3.5 stars, but that's probably the newest by publication date book that I've read so far this year. Your favorite author? I love N.K. Jemisin. I still am trying to get through all of her books. I love Elizabeth Acevedo, like I just said. I love her narration. I love her audiobooks. They're so powerful. And I also love Sarah J. Maas, obviously, because of the themes and the things that she puts in her books. I know that she's had controversial situations around her recently, but I still enjoy her books. Those are the 3 that I think I would say right now. I'm sure I'm gonna have more as of next year. Like, I'm reading some other beloved authors and I'm wondering if they're gonna end up being favorites, but I think those are the 3 that I would say right now. 13, buying books or borrowing books? Probably buying books, because also I'm a book collector, and as you can see, my shelves are getting very full. So it's an addiction and I can admit it. Can I stop myself? No, but I can admit it. And that is the probably first step towards some moderation. Number 14 is a book you dislike that everyone else seems to love. And I think for this one, I might have to go with Serpent and Dove. I don't totally dislike it, but I find it really ridiculous. I can understand why people like it because it's like fun and it's easy and it's like a junk food type of read, which is always what people say when they read it, but I just find it to be ridiculous even though it's like a junk food read. So I enjoyed my second time around reading it. I did do a whole vlog about that because we're buddy reading like the series up until the last one, and I want to finish the series just to know what happens and to close it out, but everyone loves it. It's such a darling, and I just can't get my head wrapped around it, unfortunately. Bookmarks or dog ears? I don't know who you monsters are out there that dog ear your books, but you're all monsters. And I definitely prefer bookmarks. A book you can always reread. I don't reread a lot because I have a lot of books to actually read for the first time. But books that I've reread recently are probably the Court of Thorns and Roses books. Those are just really easy comfort reads. If we're talking about like junk food books, those are probably it because they're just like so fun to read and I just love going through them and talking about them with friends, so probably those. But I do really want to read the Broken Earth trilogy again, and I want to reread Fahrenheit 451, so I think those are gonna also be on that list of like favorites and ones I want to reread too. Can you read while hearing music? So not when the music has lyrics, because then I always get into the lyrics of the song, but I can listen to like lo-fi music or like steady music or just background music, which I actually put on a lot of ambient sounds, ambient music when I'm reading, especially if there's like little sounds in my environment that are distracting. I'll put on like another kind of white noise, ambient music, ambient sound so that I can get through the noise when I'm reading. So yes and no. 18, one POV or multiple POVs? I actually don't mind either one. I don't like reading in the first person, so if it's going to be one POV, I don't like reading I did this or I did that, so it's not my favorite style. There used to be a time where I didn't mind the first person writing, but I don't like it. So if it's one POV, I don't like that writing, so not that writing. But if it's third person, it's completely fine. Multiple POVs, on the other hand, are fine, but if there are too many of them that I can't keep track, then it becomes really difficult. Like the first half of Malice by John Gwynne, though I love his writing, it took me a while to figure out who all the characters were because I felt like there was so many different points of view to keep track of. You get used to it in the second half, but it was definitely a challenge. So I don't like when there's too many characters, but either way I don't mind one POV or multiple POVs with those contingencies in mind. 19, do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? Definitely over multiple days because usually the books I read are hella long. But if it's a short little novella, I'll probably read that in one sitting if I can. Usually though, I don't usually finish books in one sitting because I get distracted or if something happens, but definitely multiple days for me. The last question is, who do you tag? So I was thinking about this and I would love to hear more from these 4 people. So first is Joanna Sousa. If you haven't been tagged or if you haven't done this, I tag you. I would love to hear your answers. Also Anita, her channel is new. You guys should go check her out. I would love to hear your answers as well. And Johanna, I will link her channel down below as well. So both Joannas, Joanna and Joanna. And then 4th, I would love to hear Evie's answers. So from She Was Only Evie, if you feel like doing a tag, I would love to hear your answers to this. No pressure either way, but if you guys want to do it, I would love to see your videos and hear all about your answers. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please click on that thumbs up button. That does help me out. And if you like this video and you want to see more from me, please don't hesitate to click on that subscribe button.